And thanks everybody for joining. This is going to be fun. We're going to be doing this monthly, and we'll get into the purpose, the why, and introduce the key players on the brevity side before we get started. Now, are you able to let people in?
Yep, I'm on it.
All right, perfect. Thanks, brother. Oh, 9:02. Happy Friday, everybody. I know people will be joining. This is the first of many. We made a lot of we shot out that Kelvin Johnson, CEO, co-founder of Brevity. We also have Brian Burns here, the host of the Brutal Truth Sales and Selling podcast, and then a few members on our team. But we've onboarded over 60 plus sales organizations. The reason why we're here, we've onboarded over 60 plus sales organizations across many different industries that you see in the back of Niall and my screen. And we wanted to do a better job of providing insights on the various conversation challenges and traps that are really preventing our teams from hitting quota. Brevity sales team is proudly grown quite a bit. Proud of the work that Niall and Ben have done within the first 60 days. They have both closed close to 3 deals apiece. And they use Brevity daily. So we are also running into the same challenge that a lot of the sales leaders and sellers on this call are running into. So we want to do a better job on a monthly basis, as well as during our customer check-ins, on providing you all, insights on the different challenges and traps based on the seasonality, based on what we're facing as a sales organization, based on what you all are facing. And then we also have what I call the GOAT, Brian Burns, with us. He has office hours where he gets a lot of feedback from sales leaders and sellers on mastering the complex B2B sales. So that's part of the agenda we have today. Also open to feedback to make this better going forward. But the real agenda today is go over the traps. We will have one of our team members at Brevity actually put him on the spot for the trap that we're going to go over, and then open it up for any questions or comments. We don't have, disclaimer, I don't have all the answers here. Brevity does not have all the answers, but a big part of what we're going to do today is talk through strategies, tactics, and also talk tracks for the trap that we're going to be presenting today. So first slide, I want to really, Brian sent this to me late last night. I want to also give him the floor to give a quick introduction. Maybe talk about why Brevity, but then also these 4 stages of learning and how that's going to segue into the trap that we're going to talk about today.
Thanks, Calvin. I think as sales leaders, and I've been a sales leader, that your reps, everybody goes through these 4 stages of learning. And what we're going to be talking to you about today is not just having Brevity used for a mock sales conversation, but to identify the things that happen at the end of the quarter and what is the root cause of them in the sales process. These sales moments where they could have done it better and prevented the deal from stalling or delaying or being marginalized if they took that action. And I think it's critical to understand why they don't take that action, is because salespeople go through a development process. They start off as service reps, where they answer questions, they focus on the product. And when they caught off guard with what we call a trap, send me a proposal, give me 5 points off, or we're going to push it off till January, they're caught off balance. So they revert to their instincts. They know what they should say, or they have an idea of what they should say, but their instincts say, do what the customer wants. So when they learn a new skill, at first they didn't know they needed that skill. Just give the customer what they want, send a quote, give them a discount, extend the eval, call them in January. But that's not what salespeople should do. They should really get the client focused on the impact of delaying. So then they become consciously incompetent. They know they should, but they don't feel comfortable. And then they become consciously competent at it, but they have to think. And if they have to think, they probably will choke or panic and revert to instinct and cave. What you need to get the reps is unconsciously competent. It's second nature. It's part of their DNA. Think about, I don't know if you ever taught your kids how to drive, and the hardest part is parallel parking. It's counterintuitive. Everybody thinks they should just pull right into the space and back up. But anyone who's tried that knows it doesn't work. And so what do? You have to take them to a nice, comfortable place where no one's beeping their horn at them, no one's yelling at them, they can't hit anything, and you teach them how to do it, and you do it 4 or 5 times, and then you gradually bring them into the real world and try it. And this is what we're trying to do with Brevity, is break down the sale into these advanced skills: negotiation, push back, focus on value versus price, focus on the problem, not just the product, focus on getting the next meeting, calendars, not just verbally committed to. And having taught highly motivated, highly bright reps for now the last 12 years, I get them to write it down. I get them to agree with me, but I ask them, well, why don't you do it? Oh, it will break rapport. I didn't feel natural with it. And brevity is the only thing that I found that will get them that unconscious competence without jeopardizing deals, jeopardizing you guys' income. Because if they do it on a real deal, they tend to be awkward, and it doesn't come across well, and it's rarely effective. So they need that, like the parallel parking, to go to the mall parking lot where no one else is around, there's no negative feedback, and just practice. Get comfortable with the motion, with the play, so that it can become unconsciously competent. Because I know your reps might get tired of doing a discovery call in brevity, but they won't get tired handling these more difficult sales skills. So what I'm looking for from you guys as sales leaders is, at the end of the quarter, why deals don't close? What do you think is that cause? How do we build a little drill so that they can practice that periodically, randomly, and become great at it?
Awesome. And just in case you all have not received this, I'm just going to share my screen super quick. If you haven't, I will make sure you have it. But this is the first of many, which we call the Revenue Performance Playbook, kind of our first white paper, so to speak. If you have not received this, just let me know after this conversation. I will make sure you get this. But qualitatively and quantitatively, literally what Brian has just said, we found more value instead of practicing just full-length conversations. We see the full-length conversations pretty effective when you think about the new hire ramp up and getting those reps. But even for new hires in the certification process, breaking down these conversations, say if you have an entire first qualification methodology, right? Even breaking that down in a 7-minute chunk so people can really understand each of those different phases is where we share a lot of these insights in this revenue performance playbook. That if you don't have it, I see James. I will get you that after this conversation. So let me go to the next slide. Oh, 1 second. Perfect. So the first trap, and a lot of these traps are in that white paper. There's a few that I think we still need to add. That's why it's volume 1. But the first one is what we call the negotiation trap. And I feel like everybody on this call has gone through this before. And that's when you're not necessarily prepared, when you've done a good job, you got the technical win, And now it's time, hopefully you've done a business justification review, but now you're at that proposal and you're at that contracting phase of the sales process. And your reps and yourselves are not prepared for the various concessions that your prospects may ask. Hey, could we get a lower per seat price? Could we get the waived implementation fee? Could we do a pilot? Could we do a free pilot? All these different areas where you thought you got the technical win and then you're unprepared and you end up caving in. So this is a real life example that happened before I went on the vacation in Mexico a few weeks ago. Myself and Niall is one of our founding AEs. It was a call. The person may be on this conversation, ironically, but it was like, hey, Niall, we'd like to actually start with brevity December 1st instead of January. Instead of 10 seats, we want to bump it up to 15, but do me a solid and just make sure it's at the same price of the 10 seats. That shouldn't be a problem, right? And now you got to think long term. We have a lot of reps, blah, blah, blah. We have a lot of reps, close to over 100 that's going to be able to use this. So think long term now, right? The impact, you get excited. This has happened to me countless times, especially being the founder of Brevity and early stage, just being happy people wanted to purchase the software, but we're past that point now. And we've added a lot of value to a lot of organizations, and we got to make sure we have a backbone. So this is a less than 7-minute drill. And at Brevity right now, there's 2 mandatory role plays that are required for our AEs right now. One is this negotiation trap, and the second one is the price to value trap. Monday through Friday, either or, they have their own choice. Luckily, Niall did an amazing job of this trap, but the impacts of not being able to, one, recognize that we're in this trap, right? Because at the end of the day, where we're going to be able to take Brevity to the next level is providing everybody 3 things: knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And wisdom goes back to what Brian was talking about on the previous slide of unconscious competence. And the only way we can do that is through repetition, practice, and preparation. Now, the impact of not perfecting or mastering this negotiation trap: decreased gross margins on a per deal basis, lower profit margins, longer negotiation cycles. And the other one that isn't as noticeable is caving sets up a poor stage for that transition into customer success, right? And we want to just make sure that if we give too many concessions, that can lead down the trail when it, eventually gets over to, customer success. Hey, Brian, do you want to fill in anything I missed here before I kind of transition to the next slide with this particular trap?
Yeah, I think what you need to understand is these, no matter if you've been selling for 30 days or 30 years, if you're not doing it at least once a week, you get rusty, you get uncomfortable with it, and you get caught off balance. This is a way of you as leaders understanding where your reps are from a skill base. And how else can you do that? You can listen to their recorded calls, but nobody has time for that. This is a way of developing their skills and understanding where their skills are without micromanaging them and without taking any more than 5 or 7 minutes a day of their time.
And what we want to open up to now is the strategies and tactics. And the key word that we want everybody on this call to be that there's so much emphasis on objection handling, overcoming objections. And we're at the School of Thought of objection prevention. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about on these monthly webinars are strategies and tactics to prevent the negotiation trap, whether that's in conversation strategy, tactics, or talk tracks. And everybody on this call will get access to these links. But the first one is having a business justification review stage that precedes the proposal and contract review stage. And if you guys, I feel like a good amount of you, if I did a good job selling myself, I might have made my own concessions. Everyone on the call should have received a business justification. Craig, I think you received one, a business justification review before the proposal. So we're on the same page as to what is the quantifiable impact, what is the why now, because sometimes we don't always get the benefit of chatting with the economic buyer. And this is just a one-page document that really outlines qualitative, quantifiable ROI, why now, why us. But you'll be able to have links to our ROI templates and business justification review. The second one I want to speak to is we've created at Brevity a negotiation lever checklist that is reviewed and used. It's almost a decision tree, right? So if someone asked you for a shorter contract duration, it's what are those acceptable levers that Niall and Ben, they don't have to go back to myself or Eric, and they can just do that on the fly. So everybody has different levers. They ask for a lower per seat price. Maybe you add an additional 6 to 12 months onto the contract duration. So that's just another way to be prepared. And then number 3 is what we call value reinforcement and reeducation. If we're doing a good job in number 1, which is the business justification review, making sure we have, all right, what is the percentage of reps hitting quota? Where do we want to get to? Really that gap that's going to improve revenue performance, just reinforcing what we've already discussed is another way to, get the prospect to understand the value versus just the cost, and really avoiding the commodity trap. But Brad, also wanted you to fill in any strategies, tactics, anything I missed when it comes to the prevention of this particular trap.
Well, I think in general, we're not prescribing how you answer it. We're giving you a sandbox to have your reps get comfortable answering it, and you guys decide what good is and what great is. So it's not Brevity or Brian prescribing. It's like we have recommendations, but your sale is your sale. It might be different, but this is a way of your reps becoming comfortable with it and you understanding how they handle it before a live conversation.
I also want to open this up to any sales leaders that have run into this trap and any strategies or tactics that have been helpful to you as well.
Because I know how it comes up as a rep to me all the time. It was, you have an update call and they say, oh, yeah, the quote's expired. Can you send me an updated quote and take 5 more points off of it? I mean, you ever heard that? So the sale's now taking longer and there's less money towards it. How do your reps handle it? It's scary, right? Yeah. Most cave.
Yeah,
or you can think.
And go ahead.
Hey, Kelvin. Hi. One of the biggest objections we face in our industry is the cost of change. Our customers don't want to change. They want to remain with the incumbent. And I think it's really difficult for me and for our reps to be able to answer to that and say, hey, you're working with a good provider. I know you're doing business properly, but you need to look at us as well. We want to become a trusted partner. And that really becomes difficult. That's one of the biggest things we face.
So yeah, get those reps comfortable talking about why would they change, what the issues are with that incumbent.
How to think on the fly. That's the
Yes.
important part.
Yes.
Thinking on the fly.
And
sometimes I'm good at it and sometimes I stink. You just
right.
They really throw you for a loop.
Oh, you're human?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's just since you just brought that up, just a quick little audible in that revenue performance playbook. That is one of the 10 traps which we kind of outline is the switching cost trap, and just being able to practice that to where it's automatic for just 5 to 7 minutes. And they may say it in different ways. You know, the transition to your product seems too complex, costly, or time consuming, or whatever that is. You would start that, you would start that conversation. That would be the first thing. And then they got to flow from there. And that's what we've seen a lot of our customers transitioning to. Instead of the full length conversation, let's just isolate that one area and get insanely comfortable, confident, and convincing there.
That's great.
Hey, James.
Yeah, I just wanted to call out another trap of getting teams who don't do any pre-work, don't understand the requirements to investigate before they go on a call. And Calvin, you and I have had a number of calls with large corporations where there's a big group of people making the decision or seeming to make the decision. And I think it might be worth you just talking about how you've tried to kind of pin the make sure you're getting that decision maker, pin them down and make them responsible for their team doing the pre-work, like building out the scenario they want to practice or reading up on the situation, because that's been a big issue for us.
Yeah. We kind of call it the single threaded trap. I'm the decision maker. You don't need to work with anybody else. And asking questions like, well, what does leadership think of this problem? How do they view it? Ways to ferret out, how far has this decision gone? And that's a great trap because everybody falls into it. They think just because they're talking to somebody at the company that person represents the whole company. They just represent their own personal interests. And one of the reasons...
Oh, so go ahead, Brad. I didn't cut you off.
It's one of the big reasons why deals don't close at the end of the quarter. Is a proposal's been given to somebody who has no economic authority, and they forward it to their manager and think it's in procurement. You ever heard that at the end of the quarter? Oh, it's stuck in procurement. No, it's stuck in the email box. The manager hasn't even approved it yet.
That also reminds me, in essence, of that one of your principles, Brian, about divide and concur.
Yeah. Where do you fit in? How long have you been looking at this? Who else does it affect? Who else cares? Who cares most about this? And that's it. Reps get too comfortable with one person who may be a coach or a champion, but it's rarely enough in a large complex sale.
I think Kelvin and Brian, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Craig.
I was going to say, I really, we believe that the selling on value is critically important. So I couldn't agree with the strategy up here on making sure that you've got business relevance and review. I really like the idea of negotiation lever checklist out there to really help drive how audible ready they are, or at least give them a position that they can walk into. But sometimes customers will start negotiating maybe even too early when you haven't set that yet. Is that another challenge for you guys? Or is that, like, do you separate your negotiation trap challenge with like them starting to negotiate too early, or do you have a separate lever checklist for that? How do you guys look at that?
But you could build it either way, because usually, what's the first thing they ask is, what does it do? How much does it cost?
Right.
And then they have any other questions? Well, send me a proposal. Well, that's not a deal. That's curiosity.
That's right.
Then you follow up and they say, well, can you send me another quote with more discount?
Yeah. You're always negotiating, right?
Right. And it's like, how do you handle that on a first call?
Sure.
Right. The price versus value. Are we talking about the price or the value of the product and the impact of it? And like with brevity, people want to do a 30-day eval. Well, the eval costs more than the product.
Right.
You want to solve the problem, or you want to be Consumer Reports?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point.
You can't afford to wait.
No. Agreed.
I think also when someone starts asking questions that early, and Kelvin showed it a second ago, you might just be falling into the RFP trap. They may just be trying to get that info from you that early on to fall in to be one of the 3 RFP companies. So you have to ask those questions, to your point, Craig, like early on to suss out, even if it's a serious negotiation or essentially they just want to get price from you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think from brevity perspective, it gives us a chance to practice those things. I was just trying to think about how many traps do you practice at one time, and getting people kind
Great
of
question.
to practice it versus, am I doing single threadedness? Am I selling on value? Am I in a negotiation challenge? Because you get all of them, and just kind of help people focus in is important.
Our rule of thumb right now, Craig, is 2. And I make it an or for Nile and Ben, right? So because of we're in closing season, it's either for us a negotiation trap, which Nile is going to do shortly, or it's the price to value. That price to value one is essential at any point within the sales process, right? So that example is great because we were on a call maybe like 4 weeks ago. Somebody that wasn't an economic buyer came in disgruntled. We had a good demo. Well, how much is this? We don't have budget right now. Kelvin, and now how much is this going to cost? Right? It can be a little startling, right? Even if you run into it, and it's very tempting to forget about the information we distilled during the discovery phase of, are we looking to improve new hire ramp up? Are we looking to improve the number of appointments set and completed? Are we looking to improve win rate percentages? But being able to factor in value in parallel to the price. And one of the bars I think we used that it's kind of costing you $500 a day per rep to not be using brevity, like being able to have those levers in a good analogy that quickly highlights and illuminates the pain of not doing it and what it's costing you on a per day basis. That's something I don't necessarily do a great job of consistently, but that's why, to answer your question, Craig, is if you think about like basketball or a sport, for example, and you could have your left hand layup. They got the mic and drill, right? I don't know if you basketball players remember the mic and drill, or you could work on your free throws, you could work on your mid range, and now everybody's just shooting, shots from half court like Steph Curry, right? But if you're really already good at your left hand layup, for Nile and Ben, they're good at winning the calendar war, right? They're amazing at getting that next step's calendar, right? A few of my friends are in the sales process that are sales leaders, and they're like, they're sharp. They get it. But when we think about what are those areas, we think of 80-20 analysis, what are those 2 high impact traps? So we just focuses on 2. And then what we do is also have our reps grade their certain sections of calls, right? So if one of the traps is the procurement process trap that I've done a poor job of myself, but we just make sure we're constantly evaluating what's happening in the calls. That can be done through the call recordings, having the reps be self-reflective, and then making sure, based on what I'm hearing through our pipeline reviews, recorded calls, what are going to be those 2 high impact traps. And we practice those for like 66 days to formulate a habit. So I look at it as almost like 66 business days. I think everybody on this call would love all of our reps to master price to value and making sure we're not falling into the commodity trap. And if it's boring, so what? If your income's going up, it doesn't matter if it's boring. I guarantee you LeBron James and Steph Curry don't want to do the type of deadlifts and at the end of the day, we're doing this to feed our families. Cool. Just doing a quick time check. Now we're going to do a very quick demo. And everybody, we've repositioned our company to become what we call revenue performance platforms. We are not falling into our own version of the commodity trap. So if everybody does not have an anchor KPI, I know some of you all on this call are thinking about possibly, partnering with brevity, but now we are here to right this ship. Everybody should have an anchor KPI and a revenue performance plan that's that going to that 66-day habit formation process that's going to drive revenue performance, we're doing a bad job on brevity's end if we're not forcing you to have a good KPI and curriculum. So that is one of the biggest changes that we're making from a customer success side of the house. And the power of 7 minutes a day that you're going to see that Niall is going to perform right now is really, really powerful. So now let me know when you're ready. I will let you present. And if you want to add any color or commentary now on what I missed, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I'll provide some background. So I see several familiar faces here, but Ben and I joined the company about 2 months ago. And about a month ago, the gentleman's on this call. I'm not going to call him out. He definitely caught me off guard when he asked for essentially 50% more seats at the same cost. I was on the call with Kelvin, all excited, trying to get one of my first deals closed. And I kind of capitulated a bit. So if anyone, there are a few people on this call who have had negotiation chats with me since then. I do think I was a bit more prepared since practicing this. So what it really inspired us to do was kind of build this role play out so that I'd be more prepared the next time this happened. And then also for us as a team to really hone in on what our negotiation levers are. So for example, if someone wants, an earlier start date, or sorry, a later start date, you have to get whether it's a longer term, or if they want lower cost per seat, you move the start date up, they sign next week, something in return. And I wasn't prepared when this happened, about a month or two ago in a brevity capacity, at least. So I've created, role plays, and Ben and I are practicing these, constantly. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. I've changed the persona to be the CEO of Microsoft for anonymity here. So the person who I messed this up with won't be put on the spot, but the CEO of Microsoft isn't joining our webinars yet. I think we're about 6 months away from that though. So most of you are pretty familiar with what brevity looks like. So you can either assign your reps a role play or you can build your own as a rep. So I just built this one myself. I'll pull up the milestones here on the right, but really my goal on this call is to kind of summarize the proof of concept or the test drive that we've done, read out the contract terms to Satya, and then, he's going to start negotiating with me. And hopefully by the end, I can at least, even if I do concede something, get something in return. And Calvin, once this hits like the 1 second mark, if for some reason you don't hear it, just let me know.
Will do.
3, 2, 1. Start speaking.
Hey, Satya, great to see you again today. It's been a great time, working with your team over the past month or so on this evaluation of brevity, getting to see some of your reps really improve over the past month or so, and some of their communication skills has been great. But wanted to use the 5 minutes we have today to discuss through some of the contract terms and identify any concerns you may have. As a reminder, what I sent over yesterday was a contract starting on December 1st for 10 seats at 1 year. And kind of what your team has talked about is they believe this will lead to of potential revenue for each rep, since that's your quota.
Thank you for the update. I'm glad to hear the positive feedback on our team's development. However, I'm concerned about staying within budget given that this is a new category and we're taking a risk here. Do you think there's a possibility to have 15 seats for the price of 10? That way we could further enhance productivity without significantly impacting our costs.
Okay, yeah, hey, that's a fair question, Satya. So obviously your team has budgeted out for those 10 seats. Sounds like you may need a few more. With the start date still being December 1st, for me to go back to my team and be prepared to present something like that, would you guys be open to a 24-month commitment rather than a 12-month commitment, and then we could lock you in at that price for 2 years?
A 24-month commitment certainly gives us the stability and cost effectiveness we're looking for, but I'm mindful of the risks given this is a new category for us. Could you perhaps elaborate on the benefits we would derive from a longer commitment that would outweigh those risks?
Yeah, sure. So I've shared a few, case studies with you and the team regarding some of our, top clients and kind of what we've done for them. I showed you that case study where we helped that one company improve their revenue for month over month in just 3 months from 27K to 122K. And based off what we discussed in terms of the value that it would derive for Microsoft, you did believe that, it would reduce ramp time by an entire quarter. So we do feel, the pricing is fair for the value you're going to get at just, $100 a month per rep. You should be seeing hopefully up to $100,000 in increased revenue per quarter. But in terms of the 2-month term, additionally, that would lock you in at a pretty great rate for those 2 months. So or those 2 years, how does that sound to you as a potential, way to get that in for the 15 seats at the cost of 10?
I see where you're coming from, and the case studies are indeed compelling. The potential for increased revenue per rep is quite enticing, but committing to 24 months is a significant step, especially considering it's an untested category for us. Our priority is to mitigate risk as much as possible while optimizing our investment. Would there be any flexibility to adjust the terms based on performance metrics achieved in the first year?
Yeah, I'm certain we could do something like that. So, right, if you needed a shorter term to prove out the metrics, we would have to keep, 15 seats at the cost of 15. I'm open to a potential 6-month pilot for 15 seats. You would be paying the full cost for 15 for those 6 months with a 24-month renewal of 15 seats at the price of 10. Does that seem fair to you and kind of address some of the risk concerns you have?
A 6-month pilot could certainly work to test the waters and minimize risk, so thanks for that option. However, paying for 15 seats initially still stretches our current budget considerations. Is there any chance we could adjust the cost structure for the pilot phase to further align with our risk management goals?
Would you be able to begin a month sooner if we did so?
Starting a month sooner could certainly help us accelerate the evaluation process, but it also adds pressure on our current resources as we prepare for year-end activities. Could there be an alternative that allows us to maintain the December start while addressing the cost concerns a bit more?
Right now, based off what your team told us, it does seem that there is the value there for what we have. While I understand there is a budget concern, I can't go back to my team with nothing provided in return. So if it's no difference to you, or if it's possible for you, I think we either need to move the term up a month or keep it at the 15-seat cost.
I completely understand the need to have something to offer your team in return. While adjusting the start date poses a challenge for us, let's explore the possibility of a compromise on the seat cost during the pilot phase. Perhaps there's a creative approach we haven't considered yet that could benefit both sides without altering the timeline.
Yeah, I think there is, something we could do there. I think potentially a 6-month term initially, where we defer the cost of 5 of those seats until the new term begins in month 7 is something I could present to my team that would lock us in for different pricing here once we hit month 7. So I'll present that to my manager and my team and get back to you tomorrow. Do you have some time at 3 p.m. for me to present that?
That sounds like a reasonable path forward, and deferring those costs initially could really help us manage our budget better. I'll make sure to be available at 3 p.m. tomorrow to hear what your team has decided. Thanks for working with us on this.
Thanks, Satya. See you tomorrow.
Now, first and foremost, brother, thanks for having the courage to do this in front of everybody.
Yes.
That is not easy.
So that was actually way hard. He was way harder on me than he was yesterday.
I know.
Well, now you know why he's CEO.
As you can see, the CEO of Microsoft is better at negotiating than me, but this will only help me in my negotiations with some of you before the end of this year. So you guys should have tried me about a month ago rather than hold on till the end of the year. Anyway, thanks I didn't want to give too much away with negotiation there since we do have some prospects, Kelvin. So I had to keep it a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But great job now. Any questions, comments on what now performed? Is this something that, that would be helpful? I'm sure you all, face similar challenges and people trying to erode your margins. So now, thank you for having the courage to do that. But I compare brevity to exposure therapy, right? We'd much rather have what happened on a call here or when you're doing this by yourself. But the big pivot for us and everybody on this call is let's just think about those 1 to 2 traps. 66 days to create and sustain a habit, and work with our customer success team to make sure that we're working on what's really going to move the needle. And that's the thing you get out of our partnership. We're going to be having more of these type of webinars on a monthly basis. We have our finger on the pulse of all of the various challenges that you all are facing. We have the GOAT, I call him, Brian Burns, supporting us in regards to how we are selling our own product, because we cannot be hypocritical ourselves. We get high on our own supply, as you could see here. And, this was fun. And there will be a lot more traps that we go over in sales process and artifacts. But we have about 19 minutes left. I want to open this up for any questions, comments, and also feedback. Was this helpful?
Calvin, I love the approach you guys are taking with this. I like the fact that we get to kind of see the thought process behind some of the traps you guys are putting out there, and get an explanation of why, and put some thought into how we roll it out and how do we begin to use it better.
Absolutely.
So, appreciate it.
And I think the key thing is if you can start building a culture of performance, meaning like how well do they talk about the problem versus the product?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone says they do it, but have you ever listened to their calls? They ask about the situation, they ask about the problem, then they talk about the product. It is a way of being able to record the best reps handling it, give it to the new reps as a example of good. And all of a sudden you can break your sales process into these tiny little learning units that people can practice. Well, how do you compare against these people, the competitive? Why now? All of these things that you want your reps to be doing, but you don't know how well they're doing it. Because they all think they're doing it really well. And things like getting used to talking to an executive about the product, not a user of the product.
Good. We got 17 minutes left. Any other questions? We'll all check in, obviously, during our customer check-ins. And hopefully for the ones that the folks on the call that are contemplating on whether this is going to be a good fit, this is the first of many. We ourselves are not going to fall into the commodity trap from a customer success perspective. And I don't even like the words customer success. We call it revenue performance at this point. So our job is to make sure we're building jointly with you all the curriculum that's going to drive sales excellence from a habits and behavior perspective. But at the end of the day, we all get graded on did we close or not. So hopefully this is the first of many webinars where we have our finger on the pulse.
And I think it's also important to understand that as leaders, you're seeing like the symptoms of the problem, but not the problem. Like, how many times have your reps told you they're ghosting you? They won't call me back. Well, how do you solve that? You never leave the existing meeting without getting the next meeting calendared. And everybody thinks they're doing it. Oh, call me in 2 weeks. Oh, just check in with me in a week. No, let's get it on the calendar. I'm very busy. That's a hard thing to do. It seems easy, but people tend to cave or they don't allow enough time to do it. Getting people comfortable doing it. And I happen to have been coaching Cal. He was in my course when he started this. And you teach these skills to keep the deal moving, daisy chain these meetings together, understand what's behind the need, what are the real issues, and what's the impact of solving them or ignoring them. Because we don't feel the pain until the end of the quarter. And that's when reality hits us all. Well, it's not in procurement. It's not approved. It's not urgent. but everyone thought it was. How do we build that knowledge and that skill set to be unconsciously competent during the sales process?
Daniel had a really good question. You want to answer that now, or repeat the question and answer that?
Sure. Daniel just asked if there's different modes which can negotiate in a different way, like easy mode, difficulty mode, etc. So on that one I just did with Satya, so that's a persona that we put in, and there was a drop-down menu there. I can actually pull it back up if you'd like. But what we do is we allow for the creation of multiple personas, and you can edit these personas to be easy mode, difficult mode, open to salespeople, hate salespeople, short responses, long responses, etc.
Evasive, gaslighter, narcissist, whatever you want to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, for example, right here, there's a grayed out drop down where it says Satya. But if I had created 2, 3, 4 personas, there'd be, a drop down there with 4 of them that you can either A, choose from, or each time your rep reloads it, they will get a new one, and they won't know how that persona is programmed. So they might just, get easy mode, or they might get hard mode and they'll have no clue. When you're doing a cold call version of this, there's also a setting that the AI can hang up on you if you're not doing a great job, just like a real cold call as well. So yes, the short answer is yes, Daniel, and the long answer is this is how it would manifest. No problem.
Any other questions, comments, feedback? Oh, Kevin, my man.
How are we doing?
Still doing well. Long time no
great.
talk.
I know that face.
So one of the things I was thinking of, there was one of the podcasts I remember was pointing out the objections ahead of time versus waiting for them to happen, right? What would be some ideas to include that in the brevity platform, such as if I remember the conversation correctly, it was normally the customers such as yourself are facing this, and this. Is there anything that we're missing here, et cetera? So being able to get that out in the front versus like waiting for the objections to happen.
Yeah. Earlier, somebody stated that they're trying to replace the competitor. So you say, hey, I know you're probably pretty happy with X, but what we're hearing is that they don't do this. Is this something you'd like to do in the future? Or sounds like you're all set, but I'm curious, how do you do this? Telling them they're all set lets them off the hook. I'm not a sales rep. I'm just a guy talking to you. When you're headhunting, I'm sure you're pretty happy. So what do they think? What are they thinking? I'm not that happy.
Right.
Kind of miserable.
If you had a magic wand, is there anything that you would change?
Yeah. I'm sure they're treating you fantastic, but do you know anybody who's open-minded right now about something that would really be career changing? Well, maybe me.
Yep.
Instead of trying to wrestle them and how it's a better role.
Right. Thanks, Brian.
So as you go through the quarter, I keep a list of the things you wish your reps were doing. And let's work with you and make a drill for it. Are they getting the next meeting? Are they single-threaded? Are they giving out proposals like candy? Do they understand the procurement process? Do they understand the decision-making process? Who's the economic buyer? What's the sign-off of the economic buyer? Does legal have to look at it? All of these things that you don't realize until you have to. Otherwise, sales becomes this treasure hunt where you're going from clue to clue, crumb to crumb, trying to find the treasure. You can now have a system put in place. We know where the treasure is. We just have to work with them to get there. And if we don't lead them, then we're following them, and they don't know how to buy. We think they do, but they really don't. Nobody teaches anybody how to buy at a company. You simply ask the question about what online procurement system do you use? And if they don't know, they've never bought. Right? And you're there at the end of the month. Is it in procurement? Who in procurement are you working with? If they don't know, it's not in procurement. It's in their inbox. And as leaders, it's a struggle. This is a way of building those skills and knowing how good they are at those skills before they get in front of a client and jeopardize real revenue. Because sending them to sales training is great, but that's the consciously incompetent. It's not the unconsciously competent. You got to get your reps there, like your best reps. It's second nature to them. It's instinct. It's DNA. And that takes reps. It's really the only way to do it. And the fastest way to do it is with a product like Brevity, to be able to talk it through, have realistic feedback. Like, I'm sure you were listening to Niall, you're like, I don't know how I'd answer that. I say, okay, we'll see you next year. No, you don't want to do that. Because when you're panicked, what do? You don't wrestle. You just, okay, whatever you want. That usually works, I hope. And now they won't call you back. You ghost them. Because as soon as they have everything they need, they will ghost you because they don't need you. So you either have great rapport with them or you create a need, a next step, something else. Keep those proposals to 15 days, not 30. Don't have them expire at the end of the year. Have them expire early.
Always learning more. Love it.
It's deep. It's a lot.
You just brought up like 5 different things that are not always top of mind for myself. Any other questions? Well, we got 7 minutes left. Any topic, doesn't necessarily have to be negotiation trap oriented or product oriented. Otherwise, the first of many revenue performance monthly webinars and the books. Thank you all for parting your trust on myself, Eric, the team at Brevity, Ben, Niall, Anna John, our software engineering team. Shout out to Eric Nelson, who's done an amazing job creating a machine that talks to you like a human. If he wants to show his face real quick. Big kudos to Eric, my co-founder.
Great job, guys.